Hello, everybody. Johnny DriveBYE here, and today I got Kaitlyn Chloe with me, and well, I want to talk about the Catholic Church thing. And one thing that came up. No, I don't have that up now, do I? I'll put that up. And how are you doing, Kaitlyn?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm just dandy. Well,
Thanks for having me on your channel.
no, thank you for such short notice too. It was great that you could do that. Let me see here. No, why can't I? There. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, this was a defection paper, or what would you call this? It's a
Well, I mean, pretty much it's the well, I mean, it's not really a form, it's just a letter. It's how you defect from the Catholic Church. And they call it a defection because, you're leaving but you're abandoning the Catholic Church is what you're doing. And they make it like all super formal and scary sounding.
Well, I think they used to call it excommunication, which would be like you're an apostate or something, I believe. Well, the one thing that I understand is once you're baptized, if you're baptized as an infant without your consent, even like I am, and that's me. I mean, in fact, I got a Catholic Order of Foresters 50-year pin just recently. That's how old I am. But they count you in the roster as their count as how many members they have in the church. That is what I understand, and that to me that bothers me actually.
Yeah. So excommunication is different than defection because defection is your choice. Excommunication is the church's choice. So if you're excommunicated, the church is throwing you out. But if you're defecting, you're choosing to leave the church.
Yeah. Okay. I think I just got mixed up with that, or somebody said excommunication in a comment.
End result is the same. You aren't part of the church anymore, but it's a matter of who chooses. The church can throw you out. They just don't like to do that because, it fucks with their numbers and, unless they have a really good reason. I mean, hell, the Catholic Church didn't even kick Hitler out.
Yeah. I mean, what do you got to do, what do you got?
There's got to be a line somewhere. Maybe the line is between 6 million Jews and 7 million Jews. I'm not really sure.
There's a threshold,
but there's got to be a line somewhere.
I wish I was walking that razor's edge right now. I mean, oh man, I don't know. I just feel like I actually feel deceived because it's like, well, you're counting because they're for sure counting me because I got, like I said, I always get the envelopes or whatever for making the donations for Catholic Order of Foresters or whatever and stuff like that. But I just never. I wonder how more people are like me out there. They don't really even pay attention to. It's like, here's more junk mail.
Well, so what's interesting is that I don't get any of that. And I don't know why. Perhaps it's because I never was a member of a Catholic church on my own. Okay. I was part of my parents' family. So my parents would get, the envelopes. But I stopped going to church when I went to college. So I never joined like a parish on my own. So I never get that.
Yeah. Lucky you.
Yeah. So I don't really know if they count me or not, but I was baptized Catholic. I wasn't baptized until I was, I was 9 or 10. I think I might've been 10. And I had baptism, first communion, and confirmation all in the same day.
Ah, wow.
Yeah, it was weird.
Hey, gotta get him in there quick, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even remember being baptized. What's weird is I do remember. This is just like one of them really young. Cause I was 4 years old when it happened. I remember my brother's baptism when he was a baby. And it's just a little. I don't really remember everything. I just remember him getting dunked in the water. It's kind of a weird memory, but
yeah, my mom is not Catholic. My dad is now Catholic because he married someone who is Catholic. So we both converted when my dad and stepmom got married.
my mom, well, she was a Unitarian, but she was an atheist her whole life. And my dad was a Catholic, but he hated the Catholic Church. And I'm sure I'm sure he'd be happy hearing what happened to the Catholic Church right now if people were leaving the church like that. But But my mom tried to convert one time because she had a crush on one of the priests. And
Oh,
apparently
that's
and here's the thing about him, he's getting charged with he got charged with molestation charges or something like that too way back when. So
oh man.
so it's, I mean, it just seems like it's everywhere in that church too. And the cover up is what
It
bothers
is.
me the most, you know.
Well, it is. It's interesting because it is everywhere. And you know, these big grand jury things and stuff come out and hold on one second. Okay, sorry. Child maintenance. So you know, bye. Okay, be careful. Sorry, now they're leaving. So I don't even remember what I was talking about now. Where were we? Oh, it is everywhere because they do these grand jury things and these investigations in specific areas because that's kind of how you have to do it. And they find them. They find them every time they do it. They find them everywhere. I mean, when they did Spotlight, the Boston Globe thing, at the end of Spotlight, they have that list where priests have been found, and they're everywhere. And that's just one investigation. So, like, it's just every time they do this. And, you know, people talk about how this stuff happens in every religion, and they're not wrong. But, like, one of the main differences between the Catholicism and other religions is you hear about the other, you know, abuses in other religions happening on the news and those people going to prison. Now, they don't always, but that's what you hear about. You never, rarely, ever hear about a Catholic priest getting caught and going to prison because they cover it up and they hide them.
You know, well, that's the thing. It's like it goes way up to the top. I mean, it goes all the way up there. And it's this is what bothers me about the religion aspect of it too, is that there's this perception that it's perfect and it's, you know, divine and it's all this, and there's that power authority thing that you know, as a kid, I'm sure you really have to respect that because if you're getting threatened with hell if you don't obey, you know. I can't even imagine what went on with it like that. And not to mention, you know, you're evil for masturbating, for crying out loud. So it's like,
it's a significant abuse of power.
Yeah. It's so narcissistic or sociopathic. It's got all that.
Yeah, it's bananas.
Yeah, well, there's the world, I guess. But I mean, I don't know. And that's why it stays covered up too, is because of that hierarchy system that they got, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, a part of it is the structure of the Catholic Church. It lends itself to it lends itself to these kind of things because everything is about protecting the church. Everything's about protecting the reputation of the church. The priests can literally do, I mean, if you just look at the Catholic Church throughout history, that's all they've ever done. So it's, you know, they get away with all kinds of atrocities, and they have since its inception. So this is nothing new. This is nothing new. It's just starting to come out. And, you know, locally, these things have been out for a long time. You know, kids tell principals and their parents, and people tell the police, but parents and principals and police hide it too, because, you know, it's interesting. You hear some of the stories about the kids. They'll tell their mom or dad, and they'll be like, "How dare you say something about such a good man?" And that's how the priests get away with it, because they're pillars of the community. And so the police protect them, the families protect them, and the kid is stuck with nobody to protect them.
Yeah, I mean, does a priest have more piety than any of us? You know, if you start questioning them a little bit, they're just as ignorant about divinity as anybody.
Well, yeah, and that's part of the reason why priests don't get married. So a long time ago in the Catholic Church, priests were allowed to get married, but one, you know, Catholics aren't supposed to use birth control of any sort. So priests and their wives had lots of children. Well, the Catholic Church was having to provide not only for the priests, but for their wives and all of their children. And that got really expensive. So part of it was an expense issue. The other part was we want priests to be seen as above everyone else, more different than everyone else, more holy than everyone else. They aren't normal people like you and I. They are better. They are, you know what I mean? It raises them to a level above a normal person.
Yeah.
And so that was the other reason.
I think women had to climb a little bit of a ladder too, out of the equality thing back then too, from when the church was first being formed back in them days till now. I mean, it's
yeah.
you know, they're looked at a lot differently than at least most people nowadays. Muslims don't, they kind of fall that. Yeah. And the Bible is just a bad thing. Can't say it any nicer than that. It's just a bad thing. It's there's just nothing good about it in that sense.
Yeah, you know, it's I have an interesting perspective on the Catholic Church because it's disgusting, everything that they do. Like this whole thing is terrible. But being raised Catholic, and I don't know necessarily that this wouldn't have been the same had I not been Catholic, but we did a lot of charity work. And, you know, I spent a lot of my time raising money for to go on trips to build homes and go on, you know, just all kinds of stuff. We would raise money for all kinds of stuff related to feeding the poor. I would go to the soup kitchen downtown and feed the poor once a week. And, you know, I spent a lot of my mid to late childhood, teens, doing a lot of charity work, and that really shaped who I am.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for that. Now, you don't need the Catholic Church to do that because I still do those things. I'm not Catholic. I don't believe in God, and I still do those things.
Yeah,
but
I can't see anybody.
Well, it kind of shaped who I was. And until I was Catholic, I didn't spend, like my parents didn't spend a lot of time with me doing those things. So, you know, I'm grateful for that, but I would never support anything in relation to the Catholic Church ever again.
Yeah, I never really gave them 2 cents of my day. So, but, yeah, I mean, there's plenty of things that can be done without the church, that just because they claim some sort of, you know, some sort of a gateway to divinity or whatever. And I mean, really, it's become such a polluted system anyway, after all these years, since day one. I mean, Constantine kind of started the canons, or kept with the canons that he wanted there for probably warlord purposes, you know, so there is that.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the Catholic Bible is different from like the King James Bible. And I mean, you have a lot of different versions. And, you know, people say that there are different versions that were written, collected for different purposes. And so that's why you have different versions, because they're written differently for the audience. And I don't buy that shit at all. But even if that was true, you have a lot of supposed scripture that is not in the canon. And so, you know, I always kind of pitch this movie because a lot of stuff goes back to it. But if you haven't seen Batman and Jesus, you should. It is technically about mythicism, but it is really cool how they describe the canon of, because what they do in the movie is they create the canon of Batman, and they compare it to how early Christians created the canon of Jesus. And so it's just it's a super interesting way that they do it, and like which Batman versions are in. like which Batman suits are in. There's like this one crazy ass pink one. Is that in or is that out? And so it just kind of it goes through this whole process of how canon is created, well, selected, how canon is selected, and so you come up with all kinds of shit that's out. That doesn't mean that shit doesn't exist. It's just not in what they're teaching. So there could be all kinds of shit that we don't, that isn't normally known. They have the Gnostic Gospels, which are interesting, but absolutely don't go along with the stories in the Bible and how they fully control what they want you to think and know.
Yeah, I guess even as a younger kid in my teens, I thought religion was basically set up to just to having a hierarchy control over people or whatever. And well, it is what it is. Even if you do believe in it, you probably would say that. And there's people that actually think it's a good thing, but I don't know. As a nonconformist, I guess I never liked it.
Yeah, I understand that.
What was that?
I completely understand that. I do think it is to control people and their thought. And you have to get rid of some things because they contradict the stories contradict each other. And you basically just they had to decide, at the Council of Nicaea, they had to decide what they wanted people to think. Because here's the deal, like a lot of people weren't educated. The people who were the most educated were people in the church. And well, not people in the church, priests were well educated. And that's one of the things that I find interesting when people, mostly Christian apologists, make claims about how, well, this scientific knowledge or this knowledge of this or that came from priests or monks or whatever. Well, those were some of the only people who were educated. Like the average person had no education. The average person couldn't fucking read.
Well, when you get to nowadays with the priests getting found out about this thing, it just makes you wonder how far did it go back. Like Clade Starfish was just saying in there, the gross acts with indigenous peoples in Canada and Australia, it's unforgivable. But how far back does that go when a priest coming to an indigenous tribe or whatever, they've actually been doing. They probably had torture in their mind since the Inquisition, at least,
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder how many people have suffered from that kind of crap through the years.
Nothing that you can count.
No, probably not. But it's and there's these people that think that using this invisible person watching over you is a better way of that's how evolution or something goes on. You know what I'm talking about, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, that's no. That's not even moral to do that to people, to make them believe that something's invisible or whatever, to use that to control people. I think that is so wrong and immoral.
Oh, I do too. But it was a way to, control the population and to make them act how you wanted them to act, and be how you wanted them to be. If you wanted them to, I don't know, do any particular activity, you would just fucking write it into the scripture, and then that's how you would make sure that they did it, because how are you going to argue with God said? Nobody knows.
And
so you can't really argue with it. And if you argue with it, you get punished. So
well, I'm sure that once they realized the power they had as whatever power position they were in, they just took advantage of it, especially the narcissistic ones.
Of course, definitely.
I mean, yeah, probably even people that weren't narcissistic to begin with, and just the culture of it turned them into.
Well, yeah, and once you got a couple of generations indoctrinated into the thought, it just continues. The indoctrination just continues, and maybe the malice or the narcissism or the need to control, maybe that kind of faded some.
Yeah,
but like the initial intention is what I mean. Like the initial intention of what they needed an organized religion for. It's all rolling downhill, and I don't know how it will ever stop. I'm an anti-theist, so I think that religion is harmful to society. I think the bad definitely outweighs the good, and I just don't think we need it as part of society. But I don't see how.
I'm an anti-theist too, but I don't see I don't see our generation seeing a change, but if
Oh no.
but I can see people using critical. Well, I hope people start using critical thinking better. But we've already, for our kids that are coming up. Well, I guess I don't have kids, but for the next generation coming up, it's probably going to be a little bit harder because of the population increase and blah blah blah, and just people are tribal just by nature. So it's when you
Well,
get crowded, it's yeah, they have that. So
yeah, I mean, people are tribal, but at the same time, people are leaving religion faster than they ever have before.
yeah,
And so I think we'll definitely see a shift from, I mean, in the United States, certainly we'll see a shift from basically the automatic assumption that you're religious, because pretty much everybody that I ever meet is like, where do you go to church? It's just an automatic thing. Like, of course you're religious because there's not another option. And we are already seeing a shift from an automatic assumption to religion in a lot of places.
yeah,
And so we aren't ever going to see no religion, but I think we are going to see in our lifetime a significant shift because the younger generations, they aren't buying into religion like they used to. And the worse, I mean, frankly, the more that the Catholic Church covers this shit up and the more that it's found out in other religions and the more that these things happen and the less power that these religions and these preachers and pastors and priests are going to have on people.
well, it's one thing to believe in something that nobody can see. It's another thing to convince people that you have a connection to that person up there, and you are the one in control because of that connection between you and the divinity. And that's kind of what a lot of religions start to do. I mean, well, all of them, Catholic, anything.
Yeah.
I, at least that from my experience of looking at people. I mean, look at someone like Benny Hinn or Joel Olstein. I mean,
Oh,
it's just pathetic that
it is. It is.
yeah, stuff like that just bothers me. I mean, people, I just hate con men, and that's what those guys are.
Yeah, and I think there are a lot of them like that. And it's sad because I I see videos of pastors doing their thing all the time, and and I just I don't listen to the pastors as much as I listen to the people's reaction to them.
Yeah,
And it's sad. Like it really upsets me how people just buy right into it. And I'm like, think for yourself, for fuck's sake. Like, what's wrong with you?
I
I
can't
don't
remember
understand that.
that one. I can't remember. I went to this one, like Feely Church or whatever out in California, '94 or something like that. And I was just everybody's raising their hands, like trying to feel for something, and I'm just like, I'm in the wrong freaking place, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I was kind of like that when I was a kid. Like I was Catholic, but um I didn't really pray because I didn't think anybody was listening, and I didn't have an active disbelief in God. I don't know. I never got the feeling, how people go to church and they're like, I feel the spirit or whatever. I don't know. Or they go to church and then they feel better when they leave because they feel like their sins were forgiven or whatever stupid shit that they think. Um, I never felt those things. And I told, also went to Catholic school. And so my senior year of high school, we had a senior retreat called Kairos. And every Catholic high school does Kairos. Every senior goes on Kairos. And it's basically a kind of like a spiritual retreat thing that prepares you for going out and living life in the world essentially by yourself because you're going to college. And, because they got to get you hooked in, because if you go to college and you stop going to church, like that's a problem for them. Um, so you go to Kairos, and I talked to um, the one of the priests at our church, and Kairos was at a separate place. It wasn't at our church, but we went there, and it's a whole weekend long thing. And I talked to my priest, and I told him that I didn't believe that the Bible was true. And he was like, well, that's okay. He said, you don't have to believe everything in the Bible is true. The important thing is the lesson. And and I feel like that, and that was, God, man, I graduated in 2002. So that's been 16 years ago. And the church is only, they're having to get even more liberal, frankly, with their teaching, at least as far as Catholics go. And frankly, a lot of the other, denominations of Christianity and other religions in general are having to get more liberal, because if they stay super conservative, then you're going to be like those crazy fucking snake handling churches that don't let outsiders in, and everybody that's in the church is your family. Like,
When are they
so
gonna switch to scorpions?
yeah, yeah. So you have to be a little bit more liberal with things as you go on. But I mean, even 16 years ago, my priest understood, hey, this girl does not believe this. What can I tell her to get her to essentially accept what we're trying to teach her and keep her in? And so that's what he told me. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. And actually that kind of does make sense. Like, even now as an atheist, using the Bible as stories to try to teach people how to be. I mean, the Old Testament is fuck all, right? The Old Testament is a hot mess. And, and the New Testament isn't that great either. But there are some stories with some good lessons in the Bible that if you use it as like just a life lesson, there, it's not all bad in there. So I don't have a problem with that at all. It's a matter of representing it as real life true things that happened, and that's a lie that I don't like.
I'm going with the Old Testament scorched earth policy.
The Old Testament is so interesting. I do find the Old Testament far more interesting than the New Testament, but it is just because the God character is like, the New Testament focuses on Jesus and whatever, and he's the Son of God, and God is still a thing. But like the Old Testament God and like what he did to the Jews, it's just amazing. Like, it's just, I don't know how these people, and I mean, they aren't a real group of people. There's no evidence, there's no archaeological evidence of anything in the Bible as far as, the Israelites coming out of Egypt or being slaves in Egypt and then their time in the desert. There's no evidence of any of that. But even if it did happen, like what God put the Jews through, why would you follow this fucking maniac? Like, I don't understand.
Lead him around the desert for 40 years with a carrot on a stick or something.
Well, and that's the thing, is they were being punished. Like, a lot of people, I think a lot of Christians, they don't actually read the Bible. And when they do, they don't read it for comprehension and understanding. They read it and they're told what to think about it. But
it's brilliant. It's brilliant the way they put that veil of confirmation bias over it somehow.
Yeah, it's really weird, because when you read it as an atheist, and this is the first time I've read the Bible as like really understanding that I'm an atheist, like knowing what that is. Because when I realized I was an atheist, I was like, I have always been this way. I just didn't know, like, it didn't dawn on me that not believing in God was a thing.
Yeah, see, I wonder about that too, because I mean, even with me, is I've been an atheist my whole life, but I still get those you're that like big, like, ooh, you can feel your heart rate increasing or whatever, like reading the Bible and some things like that, like where people are getting destroyed, and it's like, wow, but I can see that. But as being an atheist, I didn't really like take it as like real, but it was like just like a good sci-fi movie, it makes you brings you that excited point. But if you really believed it, I can see you going, wow, and that would create a confirmation bias. I would think.
Yeah, but like reading it as an atheist is so much different, because I look at it and I'm like, I don't know, stuff that they do makes no sense, like at all. The way that they operate as a society makes no sense. Like, just the whole thing just makes no sense. And like, I had to laugh because this week's what's today? Tuesday. So Daily Bible Podcast came out today. And on this week's Daily Bible Podcast, we talked about Joshua has now taken over for Moses, and they're getting ready to cross the Jordan and go into Canaan, go toward Jericho, right? And they just do all kinds of crazy shit. Like, so they get onto the other side of the Jordan, and they all get circumcised before they go to battle. I'm like, that's fucking stupid. Like, why would you do that? And how many of you died of infection? Like,
yeah, I'm kidding.
and even though, excuse me, even though earlier in the Old Testament, when the Jews left, or when the Israelites left Egypt, they were all circumcised. But as they were wandering the desert for 40 years, they didn't circumcise any of their newborns, even though they had God's law, that Moses got from God on Mount Sinai. They had law that told them they had to do it on the 8th day after the baby was born, but they didn't. They didn't do it. And they never got in trouble for not doing it. So they had to do it when they crossed the Jordan before they went to battle to take over the promised land, because, they can't possibly go into the promised land with foreskins, because that would be just,
well,
unacceptable. So, but they never got in trouble for that. However, two of Aaron's sons got killed by fire because they lit a fucking incense burner with the wrong fire. Like, it makes no sense at all.
What about the Baal challenge or whatever, the contest?
The what?
Where they were Baal or God was the one, that the true God or whatever, and they're trying to light the fire or whatever, something like that. They dump all the water on it or something.
Yeah. It's so weird. The Bible is so weird. And when you read it as an atheist, it's a completely different experience.
I can imagine believing in it, I guess. Well, maybe not. I can't quite wear that hat, but
well, it's not even necessarily believing it. It's just like, if you start with the assumption that God is real, all right, you start with the assumption that the Bible is the word of God. That's all you really need to look at it differently, because you see, oh my God. So you don't even see the stuff that doesn't make sense. What you see is, oh my God, this person disobeyed, and look what happened to them. I'm not going to disobey.
I would say when you start with that, you're going to look at the Bible just like Psi 10 does.
Yeah. I mean, if you go into it and you're like, oh, okay, well, this person lost his faith and look what happened to him, I'm not going to lose my faith. I'm going to always have faith in God. So it's like, if you go in with those, presuppositions, you're going to have just a completely different view of what you're reading. And you're not even going to see the other stuff, because the message of what is what's important. The story doesn't have to make sense.
Well, that's why religious people hate us, because we challenge their faith so many times.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't even imagine that, trying to withhold a certain amount. I have to believe, it's because isn't that just it? It's, you're fighting with your own, like, well, how can I believe that? I just see that kind of in that mentality, I guess.
Well, yeah, I mean, faith is not supposed to be easy. Faith is supposed to be hard. So,
yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the point. But, they will never, religious people, they can't have proof. You can't have scientific proof of God. You can't have scientific proof that Jesus existed or was the Son of God. You can't have scientific proof of these things, or else they no longer need faith. And without faith, the entire thing falls apart.
Yeah, just like one lady says, Yahweh and Jesus both come off as douchebags.
Yeah, they do.
Can't say it any better than that.
Yeah. Jesus is another interesting story, because a lot of people really get pissed when you question whether or not he existed, like as a historical person. People get really sensitive about that.
Yeah, I mean, well, they're challenging their faith.
Yeah.
They don't want to hear it. Fingers in the ears, nah.
Yeah, but even atheists get really weird about it. And to be honest with you, I don't care. I don't care one way or the other. And I never, it never, just kind of like not believing in God didn't occur to me. Certainly, whether or not Jesus was a historical person, that whether or not he was never occurred to me either, because it was just always an assumption that he did. So when you question that evidence, people get really upset. Even atheists do.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Because there's a lot of debating going on with the mythicism of Jesus or whatever. So,
Mm-hmm.
in fact, John is involved with that a lot, or a little bit too, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
I was gonna say one other thing, but I couldn't remember what the heck I was gonna ask in the comments. Somebody had a question.
Brandon said GE sent me. If you found it on Twitter, that was me. I also have access to the GE accounts.
Well, yeah, you're the one behind the curtain, right?
Yep.
Well, there you have it.
I am the wizard.
I was trying to find this. I watched a video last night with William Lane Craig and a couple other guys, but they were just doing the apologetic thing or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They were sitting there talking about biology, and basically they were all philosophers, and that was about it. And I don't know. But the way they distorted biology to fit, and it's these people that keep perpetuating the crap because they use their sophistry basically to make people think that there's a real thing in there. William Lane Craig is one of the worst at it.
Yeah, I was really upset. Remind me, Beej asked a good question in the chat. Let's get back to it. But I want to talk about this first real quick. So when John and I went to the Creation Museum in Kentucky, I was pissed. Like it is extremely well done. In regard, it is enough to fool somebody who doesn't know any different. And so it was really frustrating for me because I saw a group of, I believe, Mennonites, and they, of course, there were like 4 adults and like 17 children, and they're taking these kids through and they're showing them all of these things that aren't real, and like about creation and about dinosaurs and humans living together and like just all of this crazy shit. And like, that's not funny to me. Like, I mean, we laugh about it a lot. Like, we laugh about the idiocy of religion a lot, but the warping of children's minds really, really gets to me. That's just one of those things that triggers the fuck out of me. And so when I saw that, like, I was really ticked. And and I don't say anything. Like, I didn't say anything to the people because they're not my kids, and they're allowed to teach their kids whatever they want, but I don't think that you should be allowed to stunt your kids for life because of some fucking supernatural being that there's no evidence exists. I think that's crazy.
How can you think that that's even, I mean, what would even be a logical reason for that to be good for society as a whole? I mean, to have people out there that don't understand how to use scientific method in the right way, or, they have to jump to that presupposition of something that's not really there, or they don't think it is there. They think it's there, but.
Well, so if you ask atheist religious apologists, they will tell you that, and I'm not kidding, they will tell you that religion is good because it creates unity in society, which it doesn't. That's ridiculous. We see the exact opposite thing of that happening everywhere. And they will say that they'll reference all of the philanthropic work that churches do and all of the charity and stuff that, well, if we didn't have the churches, we wouldn't have this. Well, yeah, we would, because there's a need. And like right now, they're filling that need. If they were to go away, the need is still there and someone else would step in and take care of that need.
Yeah. I see. I don't even, I'm all too familiar with the atheist apologetics.
I hate, there's nothing worse, man.
It's
Religious
bad.
apologists, like Christian apologists suck, but atheist religious apologists, oh God, they're the worst. Like they're the worst.
It almost seems like, oh, well, I don't believe in God, but you guys should keep on believing because why? Why would you want to do that?
Well, like, and I don't even mind if somebody has a personal belief. Like, if you have a personal belief in some kind of higher being, I really don't give a shit. But my problem is organized religion. My problem is indoctrination of children, and you're holding society back. I mean, for fuck's sake, like, I have people in my life who could seriously benefit from stem cell research, and we can't do it because of fucking religious people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well,
and so, it's like that shit just really boils me. Okay, so Beej asked, does anyone really think that if priests can marry, that the pedophilia will stop? I don't think it will stop because pedophiles have been. So here's how I explained it to GE, and some people disagree with this and think I'm crazy, but priests who molest kids aren't all pedophiles. Some of them are, and the church has become a safe haven for pedophiles. So pedophiles know that if they go into the priesthood, they will have the opportunity to be around kids, be trusted around kids, and if they get caught, they won't go to jail. Okay, but the other ones who molest kids who aren't pedophiles, because here's the thing, just because you molest a kid doesn't make you a pedophile. Pedophilia is a psychological condition where you have sexual attraction to kids. You don't have to have a sexual attraction to a kid to molest a kid. So the rest of them, the priests who aren't pedophiles, if they could get married and have normal relationships, then it would probably get better, because the only reason they pick kids is because they're vulnerable. They pick kids, they pick women who are abused, boys, older, even older, boys that are abused, or families with lots of kids. They target families with lots of kids because each kid has less attention, less time, and with their parents, they don't get that same kind of parental attention that a kid who's an only child would get.
Yeah.
So, I think if priests were allowed to get married, and that it would get better. But I think the only way that it's going to go away is stop making the Catholic Church a safe haven for people who molest kids. That's the only way you're going to get rid of it.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? More openness about things, because stuff like that is always, for as far as I know, has always been kept in that's our skeletons in the closet that we don't talk about.
Mm-hmm.
That's what helps keep it going, because people aren't talking about it and speaking out about it, and understanding what's going on, why it's happening. I think we just don't understand it yet.
Yeah. Purple Rhymes with Orange asked you, can you define what you mean by atheist apologetics?
I was thinking about that too. Is that's not even really the right way to say it? Would it be atheist apologetics would be apologizing for atheist beliefs or non-beliefs? But I think what would you call that?
Are you talking about atheists who
try and defend religion?
Yeah, I call them atheist religious apologists, because they're atheists, but they're religious apologists. Clay calls it counter apologetics.
Yeah,
which I've also heard.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I hate those.
I do too, man. I don't have the patience. Like, I'll talk to a lot of people, but like, there are a lot of Christian apologists that I just don't mess with. I just don't deal with them. I fucking mute them on Twitter. I hate them so much. But like I won't even consider having a conversation with an atheist religious apologist because there is nothing worse than them, in my opinion.
I can't see how you can. I mean, maybe I can, but no, I really don't. I can't see how you can maintain that you don't believe, but you can, yeah. Unless you're just, I can see you not being afraid to speak out. I mean, I've had people freaking call me whatever name in the book when I was about 7 years old. So
yeah, I mean, you don't have to speak out, but like making excuses for religion, like that's the thing that bothers me so much is like you're making excuses for this shit. Why are you making excuses for this? You have no reason to do that. So I don't understand it, and I guess because I'm an anti-theist, I just don't have the patience for it at all.
Is White Engine an atheist?
I don't know what White Engine is. I don't mess with him.
Yeah, I got into a little bit of a comment section with him the other day, but yeah, he's got some wacky ideas. I mean,
he's a fucking lunatic.
He seems to go off on these tangents that I don't know. I guess you're right. Just don't deal with them.
Yeah.
Women doing headscarves in support of Islam.
So you know
the rest of that beach.
Well, so here's the interesting thing about headscarves in support of Islam. Like, I have no problem with people being Muslim. I mean, I think Islam is just as bad, in some cases worse, in some cases not worse, than Christianity or Judaism or any other. But the women who talk about how wearing the hijab is a personal choice, and or even when they wear it, as even if they had a choice, like, you still don't really have a choice because of how society in the Middle East will treat you. Maybe in America you have a choice. Like in America you can decide, but even so, like more conservative Muslim families in America, if their kid doesn't wear the hijab, like how will they treat them?
Yeah.
And will they be shunned? Because shunning is a big thing. Shunning is a big thing in Islam. And, you know, in the Middle East, you really don't have a choice. It's not empowering, and it's just not. And it's really hard for me to listen to people, especially women, talk about that like it's some kind of choice, like they have true free will about it, because they really don't.
No, I mean, I'm not super familiar with. I know about it, but I'm not sure about all the women that are trying to say that it's a choice or whatever. I haven't really done a whole lot of listening to that, but yeah, it's.
Well, even within your own family, like if there was a more liberal Muslim family in the Middle East, and your family was fine with you not wearing one, when you go in public, I mean, there are videos all over YouTube about Muslim women being in public without a hijab and how the other Muslim women treat them. Not just, and I mean the men too, but also the women. Yeah, and it's like, it's really, really gross. Like, it's unacceptable.
I remember seeing a meme picture one time with a 4-year-old girl with a hijab on. It's like, what kind of choice do you got there? You know?
Yeah. You don't. I mean, you're indoctrinated into it. And Clade made a good point. Where it is a choice, it's still heavily influenced by culture and religious indoctrination. And that's true.
And Sandstorm share, Richard Wood said. Yeah, I haven't been in a sandstorm, but
they would be really useful in a sandstorm.
What's that?
They would be really useful in a sandstorm.
Well, yeah, I mean, if there's a practicality to it, by all means, then maybe, you know, say hey, you should probably wear this.
But that's not why.
Yeah, no, it's yeah, it's because some book had it written down by some guy roaming around the desert years ago.
Yep.
And he had a direct connection to God.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, in the Old Testament in the Bible is shared by Judaism, Christianity, and Islam.
Mm-hmm.
So so they all abide by the books of Moses and the Abrahamic law, like all of that is shared between the three.
Yeah.
They differ when it comes to for Christianity, Jesus is the Son of God. For Judaism, they're still waiting for their Messiah, and Jesus was a prophet. In Islam, Muhammad was their prophet. Jesus was also a prophet, but Muhammad was a higher prophet. So like, it's just it splits at the essentially the end of the Old Testament, which is not really the end, but there comes a point in time when they split.
What's one of the books out of the Apocrypha is left out of the Old Testament, right? That's like half a Daniel's story or something like that.
Yeah, and are you talking about in the King James?
The Maccabees or whatever.
Yeah, they have the Catholic Bible includes Maccabees.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right. The Catholic Bible is a lot thicker. I know that than.
Yeah, the Catholic Bible has not a lot more books, but several more books than King James. I think maybe 16. I can't remember. Let's see, how many more books? Let's see. So the Catholic Bible has 73 books and the Protestant Bible has 66. So it doesn't have that many more.
Yeah. Yeah, but what's the significance? Yeah, it's funny how I don't know. How much is lost in translation? That's what I'd like to know. But we never will know.
Shit, hold on one second. So Catholics or Protestants are Catholic light. That's what I always call them. Protestants are Catholic light, and because they didn't want to follow all the rules, right? So they became Protestants and made up their own rules. And then non-denominational Christians are like Christian light because they just want to fucking play Christian music and not follow anybody's rules at all. So
listen to Carmen.
I don't know. I think they're all absurd now, but when I was Catholic, that's how I looked at the Protestants. And then non-denominational was like the most pointless thing. I never understood that. It's like, okay, so you can't follow any rules at all.
Don't tell me you were a big Carmen fan.
I don't know who that is.
He's like one of the more famous Christian singers or whatever. That was like in TBN and all those evangelical stations or whatever.
I never followed Christian music.
Well, good. You're not missing much.
No.
Basically, anything that I've ever seen, actually, Tales from the Church or whatever, on his channel, he did a pretty good job on showing like all the old music or whatever. There's a shout out for him. I did a live stream with him a couple weeks ago. But yeah, check out his channel. He'll show you like how bad Christian music is compared to it's all copies of, they just take a popular thing and then copy it and basically note for note, and that's about it. So
yeah, the stuff I have heard is pretty terrible, but you know.
They definitely don't have rhythm.
No. I was a big Michael Jackson fan when I was growing up.
Yeah, Thriller was one hell of an album, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I still am. I'm not a fan. I'm not, so given whatever happened in his lifetime, I'm a fan of Michael Jackson's music still. Of all time, Michael Jackson is my favorite artist.
Well, what's wrong with Prince? What's wrong with Prince?
Oh yeah.
Beatles are actually my favorite as a band. For an artist, wow, who would my favorite be? I'm not even sure where I like so many different types of genres of music. So.
Oh, me too. My favorite band is Aerosmith.
Aerosmith, good band.
I saw them in concert when I was, I don't know how old I was, maybe 18 or 19. I can't remember or maybe I was 17. I don't know. It was a super great concert. Like, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it a lot.
Oh, I got more people in the chat now.
Yeah, love how people are like, GE sent me. Nope. GE's taking his son home.
He's getting the credit, but
Eh.
you're doing all the work. The one behind the curtain.
You know, he always gets the credit. That's because he's the main face. I'm okay with it. I never intended to be anything but behind the curtain, but it just kind of worked out that way. So.
Oh, I love when you guys do your little thing together, whatever. That's how you started out doing it, right? Where you started getting more into it was when he'd misinterpret the Bible and he'd correct him.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting. We wanted to do a Bible podcast, but that was kind of his way of making it funny. Like, he's read the Bible, so he knows, and you'll see it in some of the daily Bible podcasts. He'll start talking about something and it'll be really obvious that he knows what he's talking about. But he does kind of play idiot just to be fun and funny, to make it entertaining, because here's the thing. We all know he's the entertaining one. I'm really not that entertaining.
There's a chemistry though. There's a different chemistry. You need someone to pull that out of the how should I say it, out in left field back into the middle of the game or whatever.
Yeah, we play pretty well off of each other, I think.
Oh yeah, I think so too. It's awesome.
Yeah. We're it's gonna take so long to get through the Bible though. We have a Book of Mormon that we want to do, and we'd like to do the Quran, but like it just takes a long time. We initially started off doing them 2 a week. We did Tuesdays and Thursdays. But then I went back to school, and so I didn't have time. And so we went down to once a week, and that works pretty well. It's still tough to get it all done all the time because, he does a video every single day. And so
I just had a good idea. Well, maybe somebody's already done it. How about a critical analysis, an in-depth critical analysis of The Hobbit?
Of The Hobbit?
Yeah, just go with it.
Great book. Great book.
That would be a long series.
Yeah, when I was a kid, my stepdad used The Hobbit as a story, and he had this like long running story arch, and it was like me and I don't know if I've never seen them except for mine, but they were called Kodak Kids, and they were these little weird looking stuffed animals, and there were 4 of them, and like one was named Flash. They had camera stuff in relation to photography.
Okay.
And so he did this story and I had the Kodak Kids because my aunt worked for a photography studio. So she got them for me. And so my stepdad did this really long story arc that was based off of The Hobbit, which I hadn't read yet. And it was me and my 4 Kodak Kids. And it was very, very cool. I'll never forget him doing that, but it was based off of The Hobbit.
Oh, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, that's right. I wanted to put this into the chat. This is where that paper for defecting from the Catholic Church is at. If anybody wants to, if you're someone that was baptized as a kid and is a Catholic and you don't want to support the Catholic Church anymore, go to that link that I just put in the chat, and that's where you'll find that. And I couldn't even read it. It was way out there, but
yeah. And you can take it to, there are forms on the site, and you can take it to or mail it to a bishop in your local area, and they might want to interview you. I'm not sure.
Oh, would I have fun?
Well, here's the deal. They're going to get the paperwork and they're going to be like, I'm going to save this soul. And they're going to come after you, and they'll be like, you have to come in for an interview in order to defect. And so you go in, and then they try to like get you back.
I'll have to get some special effects makeup and all that stuff and really have fun.
I would not hold back. Like, my mom is less and less a live and let live person, but she always has been a live and let live person. So she's like, I don't understand why you have to like tell people what they're doing is wrong. Like, why don't you just let them live their life? And I'm like, because kids die when they fucking faith heal them. Like, I get so pissed because I'm an activist. She's not, but like, she doesn't like conflict, and that's part of being part of a military family, and a colonel's wife. Like, you don't make waves. Like, you have to be able to get along with everybody. So there are things that you aren't supposed to talk about, and so it's just kind of like how she is. But in the past couple of years, she has really come out of her shell between Trump and the shit that's come out about the Catholic Church and the stuff. Because here's what I've done. I've started to send her like news stories. Like, hey, look, this child died because their parents decided to pray over them instead of getting them treatment for diabetes, which my mom has. And like, so I'll send her stories about stuff here and there. And so now she gets more and more angry the more shit that I send her. So now she started posting about stuff on Facebook, and I'm so proud of her. I'm turning my mom into an activist.
That's awesome. Yeah. Purple rhymes with orange. When you're baptized as an infant, they will keep you on the books as part of their congregation or part of their membership, that you're part of the member of the Catholic Church yet.
Yes.
And if you even if you've never attended anything at church, or they don't care about that, they just go by infant baptisms. That's how many members they have. And they won't take you off the record unless you're proactive about it.
Yeah, you have to go through the process of word. I lost the word. Defection. You have to defect.
I want to call it excommunicating because I want to have that label.
I wish I could figure out a way to be excommunicated. See, here's the thing. I would fill out the forms to defect, go in for my like interview with the bishop, and I walk out excommunicated.
Yeah, you could even walk in there. You could even walk in there with biting heads off of bats, listening to Ozzy Osbourne albums, and they probably just go, "Oh, nope."
I mean, Johnny, they let priests rape kids. I mean, like,
well, yeah, there is that. Yeah.
Clade, excommunication is when they kick you out. What I'm saying is, my goal would be to go in there with the defection forms and be such a dick that they excommunicate me.
Yeah, that's how much I want to be ignored by the church.
Right. I hope a lot of people do that. I really do. Even if they go to another religion, which most probably will. The thing is,
it gives a testimony to, like, you shouldn't be doing this if you're whatever religion they go to, but you know what? Yeah.
But here's the thing, like, if you don't fuck with their money source, they're never going to change.
Exactly. Yeah. Follow the money, right? I mean,
yeah. So, I mean, if people leave, it's going to mess with their money source. And, I told the day after the grand jury thing came out, and I had read some about it, I was talking to my mom the next day on the way to work, and I told her that every single person who is Catholic and contributes to the Catholic Church in any way is complicit. And she was like, oh, I just don't like to paint everybody with the same brush. Like, I just don't think that that's fair. So I explained it to her, and I was like, okay, so you give the Catholic Church money on Sunday, and a portion of it goes to the school that's connected to the church. A portion of it goes to whatever charity work that they do. A portion goes to, feeding, housing the priest, whatever, for their pay. And a portion of it goes into a fund for child rapists. Like, you can't get around that. You just can't get around that.
And it's true.
Yeah, they have like $1 billion a year set aside for settlements for kids and families that have been molested by priests and raped by priests. They have a fund specifically set aside for that. And it's like, so if you're still going to Catholic church and you're still contributing, you are part of the problem.
Yep.
And so I explained it to my mom, and she thought about it for a while. We hung up because I had to go into work, and she sent me a text message a little later, and it was after she read some of the stuff that happened, some of the stories from the grand jury report. She was like, I thought about it a little more, and you're right. And so, I mean, even somebody that's as live and let live as my mom can still see that if you're contributing to the Catholic Church, it's not about what you believe. It's about what you're doing.
It's about the next child that's going to have to suffer for, because you're still perpetuating it. And that's,
yeah.
I mean, if you can't see that, then you're going down the road of psychopath or sociopath. So
Yep, Purple Rhymes with Orange said Vice Rhino just did a video where he covered the breakdown of donations, and he figured out what amount per year went to covering up abuse and settlements. I'll have to go watch that.
I haven't seen it either.
Hmm?
I haven't seen that yet either, so I'll have to watch that.
Yeah, I haven't. I'll go watch it because I like Vice Rhino.
Yeah, he's awesome. But I suppose I got some things to do yet, and I got rained out today, so I didn't have to work so hard today, but I still have nightmares of wasp nests.
Oh God, I hate wasps.
I opened up a soffit and I got chased around by a whole freaking nest of them. So
oh, that sucks.
You should have heard me screaming like a little kid.
I hate wasps, man. I got stung by a wasp when I was, I don't know, it was maybe 10 years ago.
Oh, it's like running into a wall.
Oh my God, it's terrible. There was one, well, it got in my shirt. So it stung multiple times because I couldn't get it out of my shirt.
Ouch.
And it just kept stinging me. And oh my God, it was awful. It was awful. It's so painful. Like I've been stung by a bee, and it's not comfortable. I mean, I'm not allergic. So if somebody's allergic, obviously that's extreme. But like it doesn't feel good. But like getting stung by a wasp is like, fuck.
Yeah, like I said, it's like hitting a wall versus a bee, like a just little pellet hitting you. And a wasp is like terrible. A huge freaking brick.
I don't get it.
They got a bite in their venom. Their venom is a little more powerful. Oh, Mrs. Snarky just got here just when we're about to.
Hi, Mrs. Snarky.
Oh, you guys are going to marry them? Is that how it?
Yes, so we are going to so we are going to Iowa in October, and John is performing their wedding, and I am the maid of honor. So it's gonna be fun. It's a costume wedding, which is super cool. So
way cool.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. Plus I get to like meet them in person, which is really, really neat. I love that. I love to get to meet people in person, even though it's weird because people you spend a lot of time getting to know online, when you meet them, it's not like you're meeting them. It's like you're seeing them. Like it's not like you get introduced to somebody and you meet them and it's kind of like awkward. It's not like that. It's like, oh my God, give me a hug. Like, it's like your best friend that you haven't seen in a long time. But because when we did Faithless Forum meeting in person, like Holy Kool-Aid and Genetically Modified Skeptic and Telltale and stuff, like I wasn't really close to Telltale before. We talked some because of planning and things like that, but it was really cool. And meeting Prophet of Zod was super neat, like because
I like Jeremiah a lot.
Well, you don't know what he looks like. I mean, he has some out there now where you can see what he looks like, but he didn't. And so getting to see him, it's weird when you get to see people that are normally avatars. That's pretty neat. And it's just like it's going to spend time with your family. That's what it's like. So I'm excited.
Yeah. I got to try and get down there too. I'm only probably about 7 hours away from them. So
from where?
From Mrs. Snarky and Godless Iowan.
Oh yeah.
So I was trying to figure out how to get down, but I've been so busy right now, and I don't know if I'm gonna make it down there. But I will try.
Yeah.
But anyway, thanks so much, Kaitlyn, for coming on here. That
No problem.
I,
Thanks for having me.
it's such a topic that's bothering me, and it hits home a little bit because it is. I feel like I've been lied to. So.
Well, yeah, I mean it's a really sensitive topic. It's tough for a lot of people because so many people have been or are Catholic. Like, I mean, I live in the US South, so like in the Bible Belt there's not tons of Catholics, but I'm from the North and like everybody was Catholic.
Uh-huh.
And so I mean, you grow up around it and it's upsetting. It's upsetting. Plus, I mean, you just especially as an atheist, you see what religion puts people through and then you see what they use religion to hurt kids, and like to me it's when you start messing with the kids, man, that's just
It's wrong. It's wrong.
it's wrong.
Can't do it.
Yeah.
They don't have any choice in the matters.
Nope.
But anyway, and thank you everybody for showing up here, Mrs. Snarky, Clade Starfish, Beej. I'm sure I'll forget everybody, but whatever. Anyway, thanks, Kaitlyn, and I trying to get my shows going on twice a month rather than once a week, but we'll see what happens here. And Prophet of Zod will actually be my co-host. He was talking about that. We haven't really gotten together to figure it out yet, but
Awesome. He's
look forward
amazing.
to
I
that.
love him.
Yeah,
I love him.
Yeah, we've been good friends for a while. So
Yeah.
all right, goodbye, everybody.
Bye, y'all.